Greetings, Earthlings. This is Dave with another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. I want to talk about free college education and the misnomer that we can't afford it and it can never happen. It'll never work. I want to start with the fact that it did work. There's a great article here, time.com. What happened when American states tried providing tuition-free college? I'll provide a link to that, but I'll reference a couple things in that article throughout the podcast here. But I just kind of want to start with a big picture. We'll never be able to afford it. Well, we used to be able to afford it. My mom went to college for free. And it's investing in our society. Is that not a priority? Do we not want to have an educated populace? I think it's George Carlin that says an educated and informed populace is the government's worst nightmare. That brings me to a quote that I heard by Ronald Reagan's head aide. I forget where I heard this quote, but it'll never leave me. It stuck with me so hard. He said, Mr. President, or Mr. Reagan, I think it was when he was governor of California, Mr. Governor, unless we do something about this free college tuition, we're going to end up with an overeducated workforce and nobody to man the factories. Well, how's that working for you? We got a nation full of idiots, and now we got no factories. So... And I'm going to say it was by design. But let's look at this. These democratic socialist programs can never work. Socialism's never worked. And just that mindset of discounting this whole thing. Let's pick that apart for a minute. So we're in late stage capitalism now. Income inequality is through the roof. Homelessness is at an epidemic. Nationwide, and the epicenter is, here in California. It's just horrible. It's heartbreaking. And there's a few components to that. And we're going to touch on Reagan again. Reagan opened up the doors to the mental institutions and said to people, you're free. Free to go and not be able to take care of yourself. Awesome. So overnight, that created what we know as homelessness. It didn't used to be called homelessness before that. Each town, each city had like a Skid Row where you would have like Skid Row drunks. The town I grew up in the 80s, there was 2 town drunks. And as a kid, when you wanted to go score some beer, you went and found one of them and bought them a pack of cigarettes or a sandwich or something. And, it was sad, but there was only 2 of them. It wasn't an epidemic. So now here we are in late stage capitalism. All these problems are magnified in our face every day. Corporations are bringing in tons of money, not paying any taxes, our infrastructure's crumbling, but yet people are still stuck on this, parroting these ideas. So let's break that down. Are we really a capitalistic country? 100% capitalism. Die-hard capitalism. Are we? No, we're not. The military is a socialist program. The police is a socialist program. The fire department is a socialist program. The fire department used to be privatized, and the rich people didn't like that because although they could pay for fire insurance so that a fire engine or fire department would come out and put out their fire, it didn't cover them when the poor people's houses down the street caught on fire and then came to their house. So it benefits us all to have a socialized fire department and police department. That way we all get access to it. And it works for the elite too, and they found that out the hard way by their palaces burning down, I guess. Bank bailouts of 2008. that's anything but 100% capitalism. All those companies should have been allowed to fail. So, corporate subsidies, that's not 100% capitalism. That's capitalism playing favorites. Why does the milk industry and the corn industry and the beef industry get, and soy and get tons of government subsidies to be able to keep those industries afloat when their business model isn't competing? So we have a hybridized system. So I just wanted to break that down. We don't live in a 100% capitalistic society, and that's a good thing. Then the whole thing is, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Hey, how are we going to pay for it? Well, let's see. Taxes. The marginal tax rate needs to go up. I'm down with AOC's plan. After you make $10 million a year, the 11th million, you're taxed at 70%. So $10 million and $1, that $1 is now taxed at 70%. Before that, go ahead, make $10 million a year, knock yourself out. But once you cross that threshold of $10 million and $1, now you're in a 70% tax bracket. Now you're paying back to the society that enabled you to become wealthy, to the infrastructure, the roadways, the telecommunication systems, the military that protects your company and our borders. And, if it's an international company, our military is protecting your business interests abroad. Pay up. None of that's free. But in a simple way, how are we going to pay for it? Well, free college tuition actually pays for itself. I got into a little back and forth with somebody on Facebook earlier today, which is what spurred me on to want to do this podcast, so I could break it down, over a longer time frame and actually give some details as opposed to just little, 2-sentence quips here and there. So using this person's numbers, their math, which, is close. I saw one website that quoted the number they did, which is that, and another website that quoted other numbers, but we'll just use this person's math. So according to the math of this person, which I verified on a website, Google it, what does your average college graduate make compared to a high school graduate in the United States? Over the working career, it's roughly $1.5 million more than a high school graduate. So if you tax that, just look at how much more they pay in taxes, right? So just that increase, $1.5 million more than a high school graduate. The tax on that at 25%, which is what I pay. Yours might be, we're just going to go with 25% for argument's sake. That's $375,000 more in taxes that a college graduate pays than a high school graduate. So you mean to tell me we can't provide college education for less than $375,000? I call bullshit. So it pays for itself. It's actually profitable. And then we could take, so what would it cost? What's the realistic cost? Let's even say $100,000. So we could take another $100,000 and put that into apprenticeship programs and job training programs. So, for people who aren't going to go into, whatever, high tech, this and that, we still want to have jobs for people, right? So how about an apprenticeship program that leads to jobs with the cities and counties, right? Good paying jobs with benefits, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, surveyors, yada, yada, yada. There's a ton of good local government jobs that need verifiable skills. So that's my plan. It seems really simple to me. And then you go back to this Time article here, and Reagan, they're quoting Reagan as talking about, I'm going to get these students off of the picket lines and back to the classrooms. So here comes another whole motive for increasing tuition. Make it unaffordable so that these people aren't on school campuses, which was the source of activism for the 60s, which freaked out the establishment, and especially Reagan and his cronies. So they basically made it unaffordable to go to school so that you didn't have time to organize and picket and protest. It's basically what that article is saying. So it's by design. It's by design. It's not that we can't afford it. How much do we spend on military every day? I think we're spending $1 million an hour on war right now. Then there's the missing money from the Pentagon. Since 1994, the Pentagon can't account for 21 trillion with a T, $trillion. So it's all the shell game, right? Okay, here's a marble. I got 3 shells. Which shell is the marble under? Oh, whoop, sorry. Whoop. It's total scam. Total shell game. There's plenty of money. We're the richest country in the world. But it's where we spend it. We're ramping up to go to war with Iran now. We haven't learned. We're bombing 9 countries currently, ramping up to go to war with Iran. And the same people that are promoting that bullshit will tell you, how are we going to pay for these social programs? Oh my God. Really? It's unbelievable. So there's the math right there. $375,000 more in taxes from a college grad. So even if you call it, $100,000 for a 4-year degree, even if we agree on that number, which I think is inflated, you're looking at a profit of $275,000 over the career of that person's life. Not to mention the increase in the quality of life. Now you can, strive to do something that you care about and that includes your passions, as opposed to just a job to put some food on the table. I don't know if you people have heard of this thing, the deaths of despair. This couple, of course, there's some Ivy League couple that did a study on how non-college educated males in the U.S. are killing themselves. The deaths of despair. And I find it very ironic that, it's some Ivy Leaguers that are doing this study. But the crux of it was, and let me explain that in a minute. I'm not hating on Ivy Leaguers, but the irony was that they just couldn't quite understand, because they've never been pushed up against the wall like that. They went to an Ivy League college. Obviously, they were doing just fine. But the crux of their study was that for the first time in the United States history, white men over 40, the leading cause of death is deaths of despair. This is alcoholism, deaths due to alcoholism, drug addiction, and suicide, basically. Basically drinking and drugging themselves to death because they're frickin' miserable, or just flat out killing themselves because they're frickin' miserable. So these things all chime together. We have eroding safety nets. The cost of living is just skyrocketing astronomically. Corporate profits are on the same trajectory. Worker pay staying steady, right where it was in the 70s. So I call bullshit. We can afford free college education. And it should be a priority, a moral priority. Just like healthcare for all. Should be a moral priority. It should not be a for-profit. Education and healthcare should not be for-profit institutions. In my mind, that's just immoral. And apparently every other socialist democracy throughout, or democratic socialist nation throughout the world, meaning every other industrialized country but us, has figured out that that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, Germany is now offering free college tuition to non-German residents. So, maybe you can have your kids take a class at a German college. I don't know if they offer complete online degrees or whatnot, but wow. Then there's another tuition-free university I saw online, University of the People. And I have mixed feelings about this. When it's tuition-free, there are some charges, but they have very limited degree programs. And the bullshit with that university, UOP, is that you can't transfer other units from other schools. So you could have done 2 years at another college, but you don't have your degree yet. Oh no, now you got to start all over at our college. So that's kind of a bullshit model. But they're on the right path. Just need to iron out some things. So anyway, I digress. Going on a little rant here, but it's a very passionate topic to me. And I just think the argument against doesn't hold any water at all. How are we going to pay for it? That's never a question about a bombing campaign. You never hear how we're going to pay for $1 million bomb. What was that? The mother of all bombs that we detonated in the desert somewhere? Afghanistan, I think. Massive, huge, the biggest bomb ever dropped. There was no conversation about how much it's going to cost. None. There's never a conversation about, renewing military contracts with military contractors. None. Nobody's talking about the budget for the war with Iran. No. So I call bullshit. Free college for all. Peace out. This has been Dave with And Another Thing with Dave. If you like what I'm doing, picking up what I'm throwing down, please subscribe over here somewhere and share with friends. Thanks a lot and peace out.